Good morning, Vince.
Morning, Dave.
How we doing, brother?
Yeah, excellent, excellent. You know, with the quickness of this weather change, it's summer.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad the hot weather's gone.
Yeah, exactly. A little coolness in the air.
Glad the hot weather's gone. My air conditioning heat pump went out like the day before it got hot, so it was like
Bad
90
timing.
degrees, 90 degrees up in the crib last night. So it was very uncomfortable. So now that it's cooled down, I'm I'm slightly more pleased about that. But
There you go.
anyways, I'm Dave Westcott, CEO of TransBlue and other things, and this is Vince Ortiz, Vice President of Business Development. So this is going to be an awesome call because this is our last call about the sales pipeline, and this is going to be the best call because we have the Vice President of Business Development on the call. So it can't get any better than having the guy who makes it all happen.
I should know what's going on, right?
That's right. That's right. This is a special treat. This is a special day. I'm just going to change my camera view a little bit here, and get that rolling. So, anyways, yeah, we're excited for this call. So, you know what? One of the things that I think is always interesting on the sales side is how do I prospect? And when we're prospecting, it always starts with a cold call.
Yeah,
Cold calls can be tough, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, cold calling is like the worst thing in the world. Like, even if you're an experienced sales guy, like it still sucks to cold call.
yeah. Constant rejection.
Concert, it's kind of like going out on Friday night. It's just, it's why I got married and don't go out.
That's
But anyways, the truth of the matter is that cold calling is tough, right?
no doubt about it.
But cold calling is also a big part of our business.
Hmm.
And so, one of the tips that I like, or one of the things that I like to do is if I'm trying to talk to Vince Ortiz, and I'm trying to get through the gatekeeper, how do I get through the gatekeeper? How do I actually get to Vince? Do I get on the phone and say, I'd like to speak with Mr. Ortiz? Nope,
Yeah,
that's not going to work. That's not going to get me on the phone. I'm going to immediately get shut down. So, starting with Mr. Ortiz is absolutely a failure. Vince Ortiz, can I speak to Vince Ortiz? Nope, not going to happen. Not going to happen. We're not going to get through the gatekeeper. But what I love to say is Vince available? Well, why would you like to speak with Vince? Well, I've got a personal business matter that I need to discuss with him. And then dead silence. Don't say a word.
hmm,
Let silence answer the question. Because that person on the other end of the line, they have to decide, oh crap, is this somebody who really knows Vince? Is this somebody, it's personal business matter? Gosh, is a kid in the hospital? I mean, you don't know. You know what I mean? You don't know why it is. So personal business matter. And if they come back to you and say, well, what is the matter? And say, it's a personal business matter for Vince. Please
yeah,
put me through. And then say nothing. And 9 times out of 10, you'll actually get to your decision maker by using this tactic. It's a personal business matter. Now you've got to get that person on the other end of the line. Now once you get them, you've got 4 seconds to make an impression. 4 seconds, they're judging you. They're actually creating a picture in their mind of what you look like. And so, like, this is so key. This is so critical to being successful. This is so critical to getting through that gatekeeper because that's a lot of what sales is, right? I mean, how many cold calls do we how many cold calls do we do we want our guys to do every day, Vince? What does that number look like?
well, you're looking at we have all these different metrics, with emails, calls, and calls is I believe 100 right now to to reach out to. So they're dialing, they're calling, constantly, emailing constantly. They're part of they're in social media as well, looking for
Right.
those decision makers. So it's key that, and I think you've talked about already. It's reverse engineering what our goals are, what our plan is for sales revenue, for example, and reverse engineer what's needed to do that, because uh, and it's what drives that pipeline, builds that pipeline to allow us to achieve those results.
Right.
You
And
know,
so much of it has to do with the tone, right?
yeah. Well, you talk about once you get past that gatekeeper. I think it's you touched on a moment ago how once you get there, what do you do? It's and one of the techniques I kind of talk about with guys that talk a lot, our team, is that, hey, Dave, uh, not sure we can help you here, but have you addressed the situation you wanted to resolve? Meaning whether it's snow, whether it's you put yourself in a position to where you, Dave, will say, "Gosh, no, I haven't resolved that. You
Yeah.
might be able to help me out." You're kind of leave that open for you to kind of make that decision. And once you make that decision, it allows you to then have a normal conversation. You're not putting pressure on that person, right? So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is absolutely important. And you know what? It's it's those 4 seconds that you have to grab that person's attention. It's that 4 seconds that you have to build interest. It's how do you get that hook in quickly, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we love to do is we actually love the use of case studies. So we write lots and lots of case studies. We've done lots of case studies for Connex, previously known as Prism. We've been, published in the best practices book, I don't know, a dozen times. So, those case studies are really important. But how does a case study actually tie into a cold call? And I'll give you the example. It's actually really, really simple. It's if I'm talking to Vince and I'm pitching snow removal, for example, like I'm just going to come to Vince and I'm just going to say, hey man, listen, if I can, save you $100,000 a year, in snow removal, is that appealing to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
My
how
fault.
did you do that? How would you do that? Well, let me tell you what we found. We had a contract with a fuel station that had, 258 locations. And what we found was that those 258 locations received about 8,000 client visits a day. We compared that with the National Association of Convenience Stores, which says that the average convenience store sees 11,000 people a day. So when we start to look at those numbers, it gets like, oh, wow, that many people actually come into a convenience store. And then what we start to do is we start to break that down by hour. Well, what are the busiest times of the day that people stop by the convenience store? Well, it's on their way to work, right? They're getting fuel, they're getting a pack of cigarettes, they're getting some, you know, white powder puff donuts, off the shelf. Maybe they're getting a 6 pack of beer for the way home. I don't know. Whatever they're doing, they're stopping by. So what happens? Well, what happens is what we found when we did this particular case study, and this was maybe 5, 6 years ago, we found that the average spend was about $42 a person, right? This is before gas prices went through the roof. Now it's probably $170 a person. But regardless of that, we found a price. And so we knew what the average price per person was. And so what we could then tell was that during snow time, right, when the snow was falling, we could then tell if the snow service was late and they missed 2 hours worth of daily income because they went next door to the Speedway or the Shell station or the ConocoPhillips that was plowed and cleared, what we found was that they lost X amount of revenue. Well, what we actually found was that they lost $2 million in revenue over an entire snow season. And so when we were able to validate those numbers and we were able to show those numbers, that even though we may have come in with a higher price to plow the parking lot, the plowing was done on time. And if we could guarantee that the parking lot would be cleared at every location by X amount of time, then boom, we could show them that they were going to save money. But that had a cost, right? Guaranteeing service at a gas station is not something that is particularly easy to do. So it's got a cost to it. So the cost is going to be more per service, but the savings on the back end is going to be huge for the client, because if you can increase revenues by $2 million or whatever it might be, now you've shown the client very quickly that you're concerned about them, their welfare, that you're in this business to make their business better. And so when you do get through that phone call and you have that client and you have that, hey, this is my personal business message to you, now it's worthwhile, because now there's an ROI to the time they spent on the phone. Let's see, we've been on this call for 11 minutes and 24 seconds. I gave you that breakdown in probably 3 minutes, that real quick snapshot synopsis. If I can do that, what does it do? It immediately sets me apart in the industry as an expert. It immediately shows I'm super sharp and I'm on point, like I came with a strategic goal and a mission to the call. And 3, I'm a figure of authority, right? We all want to talk to the guy in charge. Well, I understand what I'm doing, which makes me the authority on the call. And now I have instant rapport.
Right.
And now I have an opportunity to sell the client. And if I don't do that, if I don't connect with the client, if we don't connect with them, and that's just a sample, right? And I'm not looking at the actual details of it, so take that for what it is. But whatever you're pitching, it doesn't matter if you're pitching radios, it doesn't matter if you're pitching CD players, it really doesn't, man. Like, it doesn't matter if you're pitching mops or buckets or snow removal or landscaping or asphalt or whatever. It doesn't matter what you pitch, as long as you have a mission behind the pitch. And, Vince and I have been working together a long time, and maybe 10 years ago, he said, what's the name of the strategic selling methodology you like to utilize? What is the name of that, Vince?
Oh, the professional dimensions of professional selling.
Dimensional selling, right? So the goal with this is that you set a goal for every call, right? Every time you go out to meet with a customer, you set a goal. So it's so important to have that goal on the other end of the line. Now, I've been talking forever, and Vince is like, gosh, man, this guy's been talking forever. I can already feel it. But at the end of the day, that's where we want to set the table, right?
Yeah.
We want to set the table with what does that call really look like? How do we really take that to the next level? And how do we break through that gatekeeper? So, Vince, now you've got through the gatekeeper and you've got the call. What are you doing with your team? How are you coaching your team? How is your team taking it to the next level once they've got the meeting?
Yeah, that's great, Dave. And I real quick, because I was flashing back to, years ago, how you've always approached this from a very educational standpoint, and the successes we've had with that method, of folks want to ultimately, they're looking for the value. What is Dave bringing me? What can Dave help me with? What can Dave relieve in terms of pain that I'm having with my business? And I'll tell you that educational aspect of it, is powerful, but you're also looking for, when you're talking to somebody, and it's a term that may seem to be too much, but really what you're doing is you're looking to present, right? In order to present or discuss value, you need to know who you're talking to. You need to know whether that person is the decision maker, whether they're an influencer, whether they're just gathering information, right? And then at that point, what is that gap between us and them? I mean, and then it's important to find out what the pain points are, as sales guys, there's a lot of those type A personalities, and sometimes sales makes a mistake of going in there and just vomiting on somebody. Hey, this is what we do. Here's our services. Hey, here's how we approach the business. And yet the guy on the other side may be thinking, geez, man, what a waste of time. This isn't helping me. This isn't helping my business. I got issues with this. The guy's not even talking to me about that, right? So I think it's really important, that as sales guys, we ask early on more, get to know what those pain points are, get to know what those gaps are. So then we can talk to that. We can talk to whether we can help them, and identify and focus on that. And we use a process called LAIR, where you listen. You're talking to somebody, you're listening, you ask questions, you're acknowledging, right? You're exploring. Sit on something for a while, dive deep. So Dave, you're telling me that your budget is always out of whack, or you're challenged with the safety, and so you want to dig into that more and more, and then from there you respond. You're not going to respond right away. It's a challenge for sales guys to sit there and ask questions, explore it a little bit, and when you do that, though, you're then able to talk more of what Dave refers to in that identifying really kind of you're not looking then as they're not feeling like they're being sold. They're not looking like they're being shoved something that isn't needed. Then at that point you're discussing what's real to them, and that's the process that we talk about behind the scenes as a team all the time is what is our value to that client, right? And that value to the client is not what we make up. It's not what marketing creates. It's what we identify for that person sitting across from us.
That's so true. The term that comes to mind when I listen to what you're saying is keep your powder dry. Right? That's an old mining war, terminology. Yeah. You want to keep your powder dry. And what I mean by that, what I'm saying by that is, Vince, you hit it right on the head. Like, don't vomit all your stuff. Like, sales guys want to get on the call and they just want to hammer you with the benefits. Well, we're the best company in the world, and we've been doing this for 19 years, and we've never lost a customer, and we're the best plow service, we're the best concrete service, we use the best form. Like, yeah. Stop. Right? Stop all that. You as a salesperson, you have to understand when to interject those particular items. That's closing, right? I'm gonna use those things. I'm going to use my benefits when it's time to use my benefits. It's like playing poker. It's like playing cards. Like, I'm not going to play all my cards at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep my hand close to my vest. I'm not going to use all my ammunition the minute that I get the minute I get you on the phone.
Right.
Like, I've got to gather intelligence. That's what you're talking about here. You're asking questions. You're gathering intelligence. When we gather intelligence and we understand the pain points, we now understand how to articulate our conversation back to the customer and then bring them, right, the solution to their problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without that, we're never going to be successful.
The close will never happen.
That's right. We've got to bring them the solution, right? So what is sales all about? Sales is about solutions. It's about passion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being the expert. And what you do by asking questions is you dive deep into them and you allow them to talk.
Right.
And they're going to tell you what's happening in their situation that allows you to provide the solution. And guess what? Maybe your company doesn't provide the solution. And so two things need to happen. If you don't provide the solution, then get off the call as quickly as you can. There ain't no point in being on the call if you don't provide the solution.
Right.
Right? You don't want to spend an hour talking to a customer who's not going to buy from you. Like, that is stupid. Don't bring customers to the table that don't buy. And what happens is when you investigate, because I love that, I love the questions. When you investigate, now what you do is you bring an opportunity to bring somebody else to the table. And this just validates who you are, because you're able to say, well, that's not a service that I provide. That's not something that I do. But I understand you're looking for commercial landscape maintenance, and let me refer this customer to you. Let me refer this vendor partner to you. Or, hey, I'm looking for X. Let me refer them to you, right? Now you've given them a referral. Now you've made their job easier.
Provide value.
And that's awesome, right? Because now they're going to come back to you, right? Now they're going to trust you. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about trust.
Yeah.
And how do we instantly create trust?
You got to come off as a valuable provider, right? A valuable partner, potentially. You do that by asking those questions as opposed to that vomit approach.
No vomiting. What's
Yeah.
that movie where they go in and and I think they drop like a $5 bill in the house or something, and then they're like, oh, we found your $5 bill because they're trying to gain trust, right? You know what I mean? I can't remember, but there's a million of these sales movies out there. Like, you've seen them all, but I can't even think of any of their names off the top of my head. But I'm just thinking of like Alec Baldwin sitting in front of the room, like, I'm gonna go out there and sell this. I'm gonna make $10,000 with the material you have right here tonight. Coffee is for closers, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they're talking about. But we've all seen that. But that's true, man. So we've got to get through those questions. And so what's the next stage? So we take them through, we've listened, we've engaged them, and what's next?
Just to me, it comes down to the closing phase. It's asking it's asking for that business. As a salesperson, I'm blown away, and I know you and I talk about this all the time too, Dave, over the years, is blown away at folks that just don't ask for the business. They get to that point, they may have done it right all the way through, but that's more business, for ask for that business. We got to be able to close. And closing should look, with all the intelligence that we're talking about that you've gathered, it should be from the client's perspective, not feel like a close. You're providing the solutions. You're providing to those solutions that will eliminate that pain, whether it's budget, whether it's safety, whether it's lack of quality service. But then you got to close.
You got to close, because if you don't close, you suck. No, I'm just kidding. I can't say that. We got to close, right? We got to be closing, and that's what salespeople do. That's why you hire salespeople. You hire salespeople to close the deals. The National Association of Sales says that the average close rate is 30%. If you're taking notes, write that down in your book. You should be closing deals. How do you get your close rate? You divide the number of wins by the number of estimates you provided. That's going to give you the close rate right there. Boom. If you're not hitting 30%, look to make a change. I hate to say that, but you got to close. This is about bringing them home. Once you've listened, once you've provided the solutions, once you've been there, now you got to bring it home. And I've talked about this many times. I was, working with a branding company, very nice, went through, a whole, hey, do this, do that, do this, do that. They followed up one time. I think about them like every month. And if they sent me like one email that was like, hey, are you ready to go and pull the trigger? I would actually do it, because it's like on my list of things to do. Yeah. But it's been 5 months. And guess what? Nobody sent me an email. Nobody said, hey, man, nobody's picked up the phone and called, hey, would you like to move forward? 80% of closers, 80% of sales are closed between the 5th and 12th ask. Vince, you hit it right on the head. Ask for the business. Because the worst that they can say is no.
Yeah.
Right? That's the worst thing that they can say. So what do I got to do? I got to bring passion to the table. I got to be passionate about what I'm selling. And a sales guy, I got to have a short memory. I've only got to remember what's in front of me and what's my goal. I got to bring passion. I got to drive passion. I have to be the expert, and I have to be able to provide a solution. Those are the 3 things I have to do. I have to be the expert. I have to be very passionate. I have to get you excited. I have to provide a solution. And throughout that, my overall messaging is, I care about you. That has to come through. You can't be just another transaction.
Right.
It's like, what am I going to do for your best interest? How do I show that to you? And you do a lot of that through answering questions. You do a lot of that through not vomiting. Mm-hmm. Right? And when we drive that point home, when we bring that point home, right, that's when we're going to close the most business.
Yeah. And retain it. Next phase, last phase, right?
Retain it. That's right. You got to retain it. And that's a whole different conversation, because that's the operations guys now who have to kick it into gear. And so, but the only way that we're going to retain that business is to, make sure that we have clear expectations, for our operations team. So So we get those things out of the way, and then how often do you meet with your sales team? What's like for you? What's your plan for meeting with your guys? How are you keeping them? How are you keeping your pulse?
Yeah, no, and I think it's important that you meet weekly, as a team, as a sales team. Let's learn from each other. Let's talk about whether it's objections. Let's talk about the timing of services, the timing of seasonal changes that drive other focuses in our business. So it's weekly team meeting, to learn from each other, to bring up things that may be issues as a team. But then also you're setting up consistent one-on-ones, because talking to Dave, level of experience and focus is going to be different from talking to salesmen, too. And so you have those ones-on-ones to talk about the accounts, the pipeline. We talked a moment ago about once you get into that pipeline, the last phase, I like to use the word professional persistence, which talks to what Dave was talking about, the cadence, the number of touches that we got to touch. People may not give it to you right away, might back off a little bit, but like Dave was saying, they're thinking about it. They're liking what they're hearing. They love what they saw. And they need a little, like all of us need a little push every once in a while to kind of pull the trigger, right? So that professional persistence. But no, the meetings are constant, and they should be constant, team meetings and individual meetings. Individual meetings are just as important, if not more important, than team meetings.
I love what you're saying with the professional, persistence, because you know what? I can walk into a room and I can do my deal. And you know what? I know exactly who's going to buy as soon as I meet them. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
You just know body language, tonality of their voice, questions they're asking. And you can leave that meeting and it can be a super high. And you can be like, I got the business, I know it. But if you don't follow up, the guy who's coming in next might be a little bit better. Might be giving something away for free that you haven't thought of. You think of every sales organization, there's thousands and thousands of salespeople all going after the same business every day. So Vince uses a scorecard, right? Vince has a scorecard because there's so much data and so much metrics. You can't keep up with that all day. So you're going to scorecard your guys too, right, Vince?
Right. And it goes back to, I think, what we were talking about earlier is, it's that reverse engineering from the goals that we've set for our business, and what needs to be happen, as a starting point to get us to those. It's numbers.
Yeah, it's numbers. That's right.
Yeah. So, but you have to be consistent. You can't take a week off from phone calls, from emails. And these days, social media plays a big part. And so you gotta stay consistent.
Now you're a parent, right, Vince?
Yeah.
You've got a son.
Absolutely.
What grade? I can't remember.
He's a sophomore now. Yeah. And hey, 4 weeks to go. School's almost over.
If the report card comes back, it's a D, something's going on at school.
Oh yeah.
Maybe he's hanging out with the girls too much.
Too much activity, not enough focus on homework.
Right. We can tell, right?
Yeah.
So people ask all the time, they're like, well, how do you make sure that you know what your sales team is doing? How do you make sure that your sales team is being accurate? Well, it's like the same thing we did in school. Hey man, if I know that a D is coming, I'm going to try to intercept the mail before mom gets it. You know what I mean? I don't want mom to see I got a D. I know I'm in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
Because what does that tell us? That simple grade, a D, an F, a C, it tells us things like Vince said, not doing enough homework. Right? Maybe we're skipping class.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're drinking too much beer before school starts. This does happen. So at the end of the day, we need to make sure we know who we're hanging out with. Right? So at the end of the day, that scorecard, it tells us that there's a problem deeper than what's on the surface, and that enables us to dive deep.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to talk about. That's what we got to deal with our sales guys. So when Vince is out there managing his team, he's getting that scorecard every week. He's doing that because he's able to see what his sales team, what the underlying issues are. Because if you're coming in with a D every week, we already know we know you're not going to sell any work, right, Vince?
That's right, man. And that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, if we're not closing, if we're not having results that we need for the business, it all starts from the very front. Again, if you're not making your calls, if you're not sending out your emails, you're not driving those numbers into your pipeline, then you can easily kind of follow it right back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's absolute truth to that. So let's bring this thing in for a landing. Farhan says, hey, wow, this is great. I benefit knowledge the minutes I was listening live. Thank you so much for joining in on our call and great input. Jay, the banker, says, so true. Thank you, man, for the validation there. We work on closing, and sales are an important part of every organization. And then Chris says, great point, Dave. Trust is our currency in sales. You've got to be liked, known, and trusted before you can make a deal. Absolutely. Trust. Without trust, we don't have anything. And I like to say trust happens on both sides. Trust is both of us, the client and the company, taking a step forward one at a time. Trust is built one step at a time. And then Chris also says, I love the way you're talking about positioning yourself as a trusted advisor versus pitchy sales guy. Yeah, so true. That's right. We want to use consultation in our sales methodology. That's really important. So if we bring this in for a landing, one, what we know about sales is we got to move quick, right? We got to get our follow-ups out. We got to follow up, right? We've got to have a methodology. We've got to have a goal for every single sale. We got to have a goal. What's our goal? And like Vince says, we don't puke up all of our benefits in the first 30 seconds, right? We've got to make sure that we're listening, that we're solving problems, that we are the expert, that we're bringing passion and solutions, and that we show the client that we care. We've got to get through the gatekeeper, and the only way that we're going to do that is by using intelligence and outside of the box thinking. I'd like to talk, is Vince available? I have a personal business matter to discuss with him.
Yeah.
But I've got to get through the gatekeeper. And then as soon as I get through the gatekeeper, I've got to show value. Those are the things that I need to do to be ultra successful in the sales world. Vince, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, no, great.
What do you got?
Yeah, great stuff, Dave. No, just, at the end of it, when it gets to that end, I mean, it comes back to closing is emphasize that, have your team be professionally persistent.
Professionally persistent. We're going to leave it right there. Listen, if you like this, if this was helpful to you, give it a like, give it a share. We love what we do. We're here every Tuesday at 9:15 Pacific, 12:15 Eastern. We're hanging out. Follow me on LinkedIn, David Westcott on LinkedIn. Follow me on Facebook, David Westcott on Facebook. Follow Vince Ortiz on LinkedIn. You can look him up. That's where you'll find us. And listen, if you're going through your day, and you're looking for some support, if you're saying, hey man, how can I energize my sales team? Listen, I do consulting every single day, so that's a part of what happens here. Whether we're consulting with outside partners or we're consulting, with our franchisees, it doesn't matter. So, if you're interested in raising the level or raising the bar of your sales team, hit me up. Let's have a conversation and see where it goes. But anyways, regardless of that, if you like the content, if you like the information, give us a like, give us a share, and then come back and see what we're talking about next week. We're going to be diving into some tough conversations. We're going to be talking about some tough stuff. Hey, have you ever thought about filing bankruptcy? Have you ever thought about quitting your business? Hey, what was the worst day of your life in business? What's what happens when you lose a contract that is absolutely critical to your business's success? Well, the answer to that is sell, never stop selling. But we're going to be talking about some awesome stuff here.
Yeah.
And so anyways, give us a join and hang out with us because we love what we do. And all we want to do is see entrepreneurs be successful. Let's do it. This is the entrepreneurial journey, and we're talking about building $1 million businesses. So come on, hang out, have a good time. We love to see you on the calls. Thank you very much for your time today. It was a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
Thanks, everyone.